Hello, I want to share with you a new idea called the Core Draconic Chart. It's a variation of the Draconic Chart. If you don't know what the Draconic Chart is, no worries, I will explain that as well. What we're going to do is we're going to look at my chart in 4 different zodiacs. The tropical zodiac, the sidereal zodiac, the draconic zodiac, and this 4th zodiac, a new one, called the Core Draconic Chart. So let's look at it. Here's my chart wheel in the tropical zodiac. I just did equal houses. There's all kinds of debate about house systems. Anyway, this is just equal houses. I have Aries rising. A lot of planets, Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars in Taurus. Moon in Uranus and Gemini. A lot of this Taurus is in the second house. Mostly second house, depending on what house system you use. Does it make sense? Yeah, kind of. I mean, if you take the Taurus quite literally being very earthbound and practical, if you think the second house has money and so on. Of the 7 kids in my family, I've got 2 sisters and 4 brothers. And of those 7, I'm the least into the material world. So if you take it very literally, it doesn't work. But in a more subtle way, it makes sense. Anyway, that's it. That's my chart. I've made sense out of it by using adjusted meanings of the signs, supported by our research, but on a just straight, literal, standard, sort of factual basis. I have to say, it doesn't really click that much for me. If I look at the sidereal chart, it kind of makes more sense. The Pisces rising, if I think of that as idealistic, all this Aries instead of the rising for the innovation, Moon in Taurus, the love of nature. Yeah, Jupiter up near the top of the chart. I can make sense of it. That works pretty well. Now let's go to the Draconic Chart. Now what the Draconic Chart does is it makes the North Node Zero-Aries. I use the True Node, so there's an option in the software for whether you want the mean node or True Node to be Zero-Aries. That's my True Node. And then you just count from there. You just, same exact positions. If you look at my, my birth chart, Mars is about 5 degrees past my North Node, and the Sun is about 15 degrees past. So if you look at my Draconic chart, same thing. Mars is 5 degrees past the North Node, Sun is 15 degrees past the North Node. Same exact chart, you just rotate it around to make the North Node Zero-Aries. Now there's a good reason for why we might want to make the North Node Zero-Aries, because tropical Zero-Aries is where a great circle, the celestial equator, intersects the ecliptic plane. If we take another great circle, the celestial horizon, where it intersects the ecliptic plane, is the ascendant. So from the point of view of astronomy, the ascendant and tropical Zero-Aries are very similar. And another important great circle is the moon. If you take the path of the moon, where it intersects the ecliptic plane, that is the Draconic chart. So I discuss that in more detail in other places, but the basic idea is there's a consistency about what tropical Zero-Aries is, what the ascendant is, and what the Draconic chart is. Now, all good. What is the Core Draconic chart? The Core Draconic chart also puts the North Node at Zero-Aries. Now, to understand what we're going to do here, let me ask you a question. What direction is the North Node? Is it direct or retrograde? If you're using the True Node, it changes direction, but overall, it's almost always retrograde. The North Node, of course, is retrograde. It moves backwards through the zodiac. What determines the direction of a zodiac? What determines the direction of the houses? The ascendant is moving forwards. It's moving direct 4 minutes after I'm born. Well, let's go back to my tropical chart. I have 3 degrees Aries rising. 4 minutes after I'm born, about 4 degrees or 5 degrees Aries will be rising. Of course, the rising sign goes forwards through the zodiac. Maybe that's why the houses go in this direction. The direction is determined by the direction of that system, whether it's houses or whether it's signs. So the houses are going forwards through the zodiac. So imagine it's like a car or a horse or a dog or a person running. The direction that it's going in is the direction of the houses or the signs. So the ascendant is moving forward and the signs are in front of it. So if that's what's causing the direction of the signs or houses, the north node is going, oops, I didn't want to go there, I want to go here. The north node being retrograde, maybe Aries is in back of the north node because the north node is headed in the opposite direction, retrograde. So the Draconic chart, instead of Mars being 5 degrees in front of the node, is 5 degrees before it. So Mars is at 25 Pisces in the Core Draconic. The Core Draconic is a zodiac that's in the direction of the North Node. It's in a retrograde direction. It starts here at Zero-Aries for the North Node and goes around this way instead of this way. And here it is. Here's the North Node at Zero-Aries, and there's Mars at 25 Pisces and Sun at 15 Pisces. Again, if I go back to the Draconic, Mars is 5 degrees before the North Node, should be about 25 Pisces. Sun is about 15 degrees before the North Node. That should be about 15 Pisces because the zodiac's going around this way, clockwise. It comes all the way around. Sun is at 15 Pisces. Moon would be about 11 Pisces and so on. And when we look at the Draconic chart, that's what we have. So it's the zodiac in this direction. So in the Series 4.0 software, you can go to Settings, go to Coordinate System, then select Draconic. I select True Node, Draconic. And then it asks you, do you want the standard, the normal Draconic chart, or do you want this new kind of Draconic chart, the Core Draconic chart, which has the zodiac in reverse? And if you select the Core Draconic, you'll get this. Now, you can play around with it for yourself, for your friends, for your family. I've been really impressed. I've run it for dozens of people. It's just anecdotal, just playing around, and there's so many ways to make sense of the signs. But like, for example, for me, this just totally makes sense. I still have Aries rising. Now I've got this stellium in Pisces in the 11th or 12th house. Oh my God, that just makes so much more sense. That's more what I do. It's like a straightforward, clear thing. In vibrational astrology, we do research on people with bipolar disorder, people who are alcoholics, the greatest athletes, different groups of people. And using these aspect patterns and midpoint patterns, we can see them. We get statistical significance. It's a very rigorously evidence-based system. It's very difficult for us to see this with signs and houses. We've tried very subtle effects. People with Leo are not actors. People with Cancer are not domestic workers, etc. It's just not working when we go through the database. You may disagree with that. You may say, oh, it works. But when we go through the database, it doesn't hold together. Whereas these aspect patterns, vibrational patterns, they work. We can repeat them. This is exciting. We're getting interest from scientists, academics. This actually really works. Could it be that maybe if we use one of these other zodiacs, it has a more clearer, tangible effect? For me, 11th house, Pisces, the moon and Uranus near the top of the chart. I get very dramatic in my presentations. The whole thing makes sense. Jupiter in the beginning of the third house. It just feels right. Just, it's rather subjective, but you can play with it. I want you to know about this new chart, the Core Draconic Chart. You can play with it. You can see what you think. Eventually, we'll do our database research on all of these charts, tropical, sidereal with different ionologies, draconic, core draconic, and see if something consistent can show up with what people do. Mercury in Aquarius, Sun and Venus in Pisces, Sun, Venus, and Mars in Pisces. I mean, on a very simple, plain level, people that know me would go, "Oh my God, that's David." So anyway, it's just fun to look at. I'm not making a strong argument that this absolutely works. We need to have lots of people work with it, eventually put it through databases, but it looks extremely promising. You can work with it and you can see, if it clicks for you. Okay, so that's it. A new idea, the Core Draconic Chart. It's a new idea, but it's based on the fundamentals of the theory, the astronomy, what's actually in the sky, very consistent with the foundations of astrology, the astronomical foundations of astrology. Okay, thank you very much for listening, my friends. God bless. Namaste.